Welcome to the Beyond Practice podcast, where we help you go beyond the surface of ideas and really unpack what matters. I'm Taylor Grant.
And I'm Casey Bishop.
Each episode, we do a deep dive into a topic you want to explore, think articles, research. We pull out the golden nuggets and give you those aha moments so you can confidently walk into any situation feeling like an expert.
That's right.
Huge shout out to Ann LaForest
Yes.
for supporting the podcast.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
So for our second deep dive, we're tackling something every leader and really anyone navigating change needs to understand. The emotional side of transitions.
It's easy to get caught up in the logistics of change,
Right.
but understanding how people feel during that process is crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about disaster management.
Right.
You have the immediate crisis response, but then there's a whole wave of emotional needs as people process the trauma, rebuild their lives.
Yeah.
It's not just about fixing the physical damage.
That's where the Kubler-Ross change curve
Right.
and the Bridges transition model come in.
Okay.
These frameworks help us understand the emotional roller coaster people go through so we can lead with empathy and support them effectively.
Okay, let's unpack the Kubler-Ross change curve first.
Yeah.
This model was originally designed to explore the 5 stages of grief experienced by terminally ill patients.
That's right.
It's since been adopted and adapted for organizational change, being used as a framework to explore the emotional impact of change on people. As a result, it's become an important model in the change toolkit.
What's fascinating here is how it highlights that emotional responses to change are universal.
Oh, interesting.
Whether it's a personal loss or a shift in a company structure, people go through similar emotional stages.
That makes a lot of sense. Change can be unsettling.
It can be very destabilizing emotionally, and that affects resilience, relationships, performance, and even overall job satisfaction.
Wow.
The change curve helps us understand the different emotional states related to change and how to best manage each one.
Okay.
But it's important to remember this isn't a step-by-step guide for implementing change.
Got it.
It's more like a map to help you understand the emotional terrain.
So you're saying it's not about forcing people through these stages,
Right.
but rather about recognizing where they are emotionally
Exactly.
and providing the right kind of support.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that people need time to adjust and process these transitions emotionally. Let's walk through those stages. The change curve starts with status quo.
Okay.
Everything's humming along. Then, bam, change hits.
Yeah.
That initial shock can really throw people off.
People might feel shock, disbelief, even denial at first. It's like, nope, this isn't happening.
Exactly. It's a natural reaction to a sudden shift in their reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the key here is that the change often feels imposed on people.
Right.
So their reaction is stronger.
Okay.
First comes shock or disbelief.
Uh-huh.
This is that immediate, wait, what just happened moment.
Yeah.
You might even see teams withdraw and hunker down, engaging less with others. Then comes denial, a refusal to engage with or even acknowledge the change and what it might mean.
So both shock and denial are basically defense mechanisms.
Exactly.
Ways of trying to protect themselves from the emotional impact of the change.
They're trying to hold on to the familiar even if it's no longer there.
Right.
And for leaders, this is where communication becomes absolutely essential.
Okay.
If you think you're communicating too much, you're probably not communicating enough.
I like that.
Imagine you're shining a flashlight into a dark room.
Okay.
The more light you shine, the more people can see what's going on and feel a sense of control.
So overcommunication helps to reduce that feeling of being overwhelmed and out of control.
Yes. And the key is to answer questions before people even ask them.
Wow.
Explain everything clearly, put it into context, and do it frequently.
Okay.
Time seems to move differently when we're anxious or waiting for news.
Yeah,
A day can feel like a lifetime.
that's true.
Help people visualize what this change means for them, both practically and emotionally. If you can help them see the path forward, even if it's uncertain, it makes the transition a lot less scary.
It's about giving them a hand to hold as they step into the unknown.
That's a great way to put it. Now, as the initial shock wears off, we move into the next stage.
Okay.
Frustration and anger. People start to grasp the change and its impact, and they don't always like what they see.
Right.
You might hear things like, why are we doing this? It's not going to work.
So they move from this isn't happening to this shouldn't be happening.
Precisely.
Okay.
And how people experience this stage depends on a few things. How much are they personally affected by the change?
Okay.
How resistant are they to change in general?
Right.
And what kind of leadership style are they used to?
Uh-huh.
Teams that are more adaptable or used to a coaching style of leadership tend to handle change better.
It sounds like this stage can be a real test for leaders.
It can be.
How do you navigate all that frustration and anger effectively?
It's tempting to try and combat those feelings with logic and facts,
Yep.
but that can actually backfire.
Oh, interesting.
Instead, focus on listening to people's concerns, acknowledging them, and showing that you're taking them seriously.
Okay.
This is the time for open forums where people can ask questions, vent their frustrations, and even brainstorm solutions.
Wow.
It's about making them feel heard and giving them a voice in the process.
So instead of shutting down those negative emotions, you're actually creating space for them
Exactly.
and using them as fuel for a more productive conversation.
Leaders need to show empathy during this time.
Right.
Acknowledge the difficulties, listen to concerns, and try to address them as best as possible.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to be vulnerable yourself. Show that you're also navigating this change and that you understand the challenges.
Thinking back to the disaster management example you mentioned earlier,
Right?
this reminds me of how psychological first aid is so important.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about meeting people's physical needs,
Right.
but also about validating their emotional experiences.
Absolutely.
That makes a huge difference.
And that validation helps people move through those difficult emotions and into a more productive mindset.
So once people start to process those feelings of frustration and anger, where do they go next?
That brings us to the exploration phase.
Okay.
This is where people start to tentatively accept the change and experiment with the new normal. It's a time of trial and error of figuring out how things work in this new reality.
It's like taking those first steps after a major earthquake.
Yeah,
You're cautiously exploring the landscape, seeing what's still standing, what's changed, and how you need to adapt.
exactly.
Yeah.
And just like after an earthquake, there might be aftershocks.
Right.
Moments where things feel unstable or uncertain.
Quick.
People might regress back to frustration if things don't go as planned or if they encounter unexpected obstacles.
So it's not a straight line from frustration to acceptance.
Not at all.
Okay.
It's more like a dance, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's important for leaders to create a safe space for that experimentation and those inevitable missteps.
So how do you create that safe space? What does that look like in a practical sense?
It's about empowering people to try new things without fear of judgment or reprimand. Give them the autonomy to experiment, to iterate, to find solutions that work for them. It's about fostering a growth mindset where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn and improve.
And that sense of ownership can be really empowering. It shifts people from feeling like victims of change to feeling like active participants in shaping the new reality.
Precisely. And that's what ultimately leads to the final stage of the Kubler-Ross change curve, the rebuild phase.
Okay.
This is where people have integrated the change and are starting to build on it, innovating and creating new ways of working.
So if the exploration phase is about testing the waters,
Yes,
the rebuild phase is about diving in and swimming.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And this phase isn't just about accepting the change.
Okay.
It's about embracing it and using it as a springboard for growth and progress.
I like that.
But remember, just like with the other stages, people integrate change at their own pace.
Right.
Don't assume that just because you've reached a certain point in your project timeline, everyone is emotionally on board.
It's about checking in with people, seeing where they are on their emotional journey, and providing the right kind of support.
Exactly. Now, acceptance in this final stage looks like a shift in energy.
Yeah.
People begin to adapt and integrate the new normal into their work lives. Their emotional state becomes more positive and forward-looking.
Right.
They start seeing opportunities instead of obstacles.
So they've moved from resisting the change to embracing it and seeing the potential it holds.
You got it.
So what can leaders do to support their teams during this rebuild stage?
It's all about celebrating wins,
Okay.
both big and small. Highlight the successes and the positive changes that are happening across the organization.
Right.
Share stories of how teams have overcome challenges and adapted to the new reality. It creates a more balanced narrative and shows people that they're not alone in their struggles.
It's like you're creating a culture of resilience where people feel acknowledged for their efforts and inspired by each other's successes.
That's exactly it. It reinforces the idea that the change has been worthwhile and that they've come out stronger on the other side.
Okay, so we've talked about the Kubler-Ross change curve,
Right.
which is a powerful framework for understanding the emotional stages people go through during change. But you mentioned another model,
Yes.
the Bridges transition model. How does that fit into the picture?
The Bridges transition model complements the Kubler-Ross curve by focusing on the psychological transition people undergo during change.
Okay.
It's less about specific emotions and more about the overall process.
Okay, so if Kubler-Ross is about the emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
Bridges is about the journey itself.
Got it.
Okay.
And just like any journey, there are distinct phases you go through.
Mm.
Bridges calls these phases endings, the neutral zone, and new beginnings. Let's start with endings.
Okay, so what exactly are we ending here? Is it just about saying goodbye to the old way of doing things?
It's more than that. The endings phase is about acknowledging and accepting the reality of the change and the feelings of loss that come with it. It's about letting go of the aspects of the current situation that are no longer serving us.
Okay.
And it's important to remember that endings can be both positive and negative.
Right.
Even positive changes can bring about a sense of loss.
Yeah.
Think about graduating from college. It's a happy occasion, but there's also sadness about leaving friends behind and entering a new unknown phase of life.
So it's about recognizing that loss is a part of change, even when the change is ultimately a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And going back to the disaster management analogy, it's like those moments after a hurricane when people are returning to their homes, they might be relieved to have survived,
Yeah.
but they're also grieving the loss of their belongings, their sense of security, and the familiar rhythms of their lives.
So it's about creating a space for people to acknowledge those feelings of loss and to process them in a healthy way.
Precisely. And that's where communication and empathy come in again.
Right.
Leaders need to be open and honest about the changes that are happening,
Mm.
and they need to validate people's feelings of loss.
Okay.
It's about saying, I understand that this is hard.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel sad or angry or scared.
Yeah.
We're in this together.
It's about creating a sense of shared experience
Yeah,
and acknowledging that everyone is going through this transition in their own way.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that shared experience can actually be a powerful source of connection and support.
Right.
It helps people feel less alone and more able to cope with the challenges ahead.
So once we've navigated the endings phase, what comes next?
The neutral zone.
Okay.
This is that in-between space where the old is gone, but the new hasn't fully taken shape yet.
Right.
It's a time of uncertainty and confusion, but also a time of great potential.
So it's like that feeling when you've accepted a new job offer but haven't started yet. There's excitement, but also nervousness about the unknowns.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's a time of transition, of letting go of the old and preparing for the new. And it can be a very disorienting time because people don't have their usual routines or their usual sense of identity to rely on.
So how can leaders help people navigate this neutral zone effectively?
This is where providing structure, guidance, and support is crucial.
Okay.
It's about creating a sense of stability amidst the uncertainty.
It's like providing a map and a compass for people who are wandering through unfamiliar territory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Leaders need to be clear about the direction the organization is heading in.
Yeah.
Even if the details are still being worked out.
Okay.
They need to provide regular updates, communicate openly, and answer questions honestly.
So it's about keeping people informed and engaged, even if you don't have all the answers yet.
Exactly. And it's about encouraging people to explore, to experiment, to find their place in this new reality.
Because the neutral zone isn't just about waiting for the new to arrive.
Right.
It's about actively shaping it.
Precisely. And that's where the real magic happens.
So we've gone through endings in the neutral zone.
Yes.
What's the final stage of the Bridges transition model?
New beginnings.
Okay.
This is where the energy shifts and people start to feel excited and optimistic about the future. They've embraced the change, established new routines, and are starting to thrive in the new environment.
So it's like reaching the other side of the bridge and seeing the new landscape spread out before you.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's a time for celebration,
Okay.
for acknowledging the journey everyone has been on, and for recognizing the resilience and adaptability they've shown.
So what can leaders do to help nurture and sustain this newfound energy and enthusiasm?
This is where it's important to highlight the successes of the change process and to celebrate the contributions of individuals and teams. Share stories of how the change has made a positive impact and recognize the people who have made it happen.
So it's about creating a sense of momentum and reinforcing the idea that the change has been worth it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's about empowering people to continue to learn, to grow, and to make their mark on this new reality.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've covered a lot of ground today, exploring the Kubler-Ross change curve and the bridges transition model, and really getting a deeper understanding of the emotional side of transitions.
And I think what's really powerful about these frameworks is that they apply to so many different situations.
Yep.
Whether you're leading a team through a company merger or simply supporting a friend through a difficult life change, these models can help you to understand what people are going through and to provide the right kind of support.
It's about recognizing that change is a human process and that meeting people's emotional needs is just as important as meeting their practical ones.
Absolutely. And that's what ultimately allows people to navigate change successfully and to emerge from it stronger and more resilient. Now, how about we shift gears a bit and look at some practical examples of how these frameworks can be applied in real-world situations? Let's dive into those real-world scenarios where these change management models can be really powerful. I'm thinking mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
They can create a lot of anxiety for employees.
It's true. You've got two or more companies, each with their own culture systems, ways of doing things all coming together.
Yeah.
There's bound to be some uncertainty.
Exactly. And people might be worried about losing their jobs or their status or even their sense of belonging within the company.
Right.
Think about those initial stages of the Kubler-Ross curve.
Oh,
Shock, denial, anger. Those are very real emotions that people are going to experience in a merger or acquisition.
yeah.
Leaders can't just brush those feelings aside.
Right. It's about acknowledging those feelings as a natural part of the process
Yeah.
and creating a space where people can express them safely.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the bridges transition model comes in as well, right?
Absolutely. The endings phase is particularly important here.
Okay.
Employees are losing their old company, their old routines, maybe even some of their old colleagues.
Right.
Leaders need to help them grieve those losses and then guide them into that neutral zone where they can start to explore the possibilities of the new organization.
And then in the new beginnings phase, it's about celebrating the successes of the merger, highlighting the benefits, and creating a new shared identity for the combined company.
Exactly.
It's about helping people feel like they're part of something new and exciting rather than something that's been imposed on them.
Exactly. And throughout this whole process, communication is key.
Right.
Leaders need to be transparent, honest, and empathetic. They need to paint a vision of the future that people can buy into.
And they need to walk the walk.
Yeah,
Their own behavior and attitude can make a huge difference in how people perceive the change.
I completely agree. Now let's shift gears and talk about another common organizational change.
Yeah.
Restructuring.
Okay.
This often involves big shifts in roles, responsibilities, reporting structures.
Right.
It can be pretty disruptive.
It can be even if you're not losing your job.
Uh-huh.
You might be worried about your new role, your new responsibilities, how you fit into the new structure.
Exactly. And that's where the Kubler-Ross change curve can help us understand what people are going through.
Okay.
You might see denial at first.
Mm,
This isn't really happening.
yeah.
Then anger. Why are they doing this to us?
Right.
And then maybe even bargaining.
Okay.
Can I keep my old team? Leaders need to be prepared for those reactions.
And on the bridges side of things, the endings phase is crucial here too.
Absolutely.
People need to let go of the old structure, the old ways of doing things, the old sense of order.
Right. And then in the neutral zone, they can start to explore the possibilities of the new structure and how they can contribute to it.
And finally, in the new beginnings phase, it's about embracing the new structure, establishing new routines, building a new sense of team cohesion.
Okay.
And remember, this applies to leaders just as much as it does to employees.
Right. Leaders need to model the behavior they want to see in their teams.
Yeah.
If they're resistant to the change or if they're not communicating effectively, it's going to trickle down and create more resistance.
Exactly. Leaders need to be the champions of change. They need to be the ones who are painting the vision and inspiring people to embrace the new reality.
Okay, so we've talked about mergers and acquisitions, and we've talked about restructuring. What about the introduction of new technologies? That's another big one that can cause a lot of disruption in the workplace.
Absolutely. New technologies can automate tasks, eliminate jobs, change the way we work entirely.
Right.
It can be scary for employees who fear becoming obsolete or unable to adapt. It's like that fear of the unknown we talked about earlier, but magnified.
Right. People might resist the new technology, cling to the old ways of doing things, even sabotage the implementation process. And again, the Kubler-Ross change curve can help us understand those reactions.
Okay.
You might see denial. They'll never get this new system to work.
Uh-huh.
Anger. Why are they making us learn this new thing?
Right.
Bargaining. Can't we just keep using the old system?
Yeah.
Depression. I'm never going to be able to keep up.
So how can leaders use these change management models to help employees adapt to new technologies? What
Yeah.
are some practical steps they can take?
The first step is acknowledging the fear and uncertainty.
Okay.
Don't dismiss those concerns.
Right.
Instead, create a safe space for people to voice their concerns and ask questions.
Hmm.
Then, in the endings phase, help people let go of their attachment to the old technology and see the potential benefits of the new one.
Okay.
Highlight the ways in which the new technology can make their jobs easier, more efficient, or more rewarding.
And then in the neutral zone, it's all about providing training and support.
Yes.
Give people the resources they need to learn the new system
Right.
and to feel confident using it,
Uh,
and create opportunities for them to practice and experiment in a safe environment.
exactly. And don't forget about the new beginnings phase.
Okay.
Celebrate the successes of the technology implementation.
Hmm.
Highlight the ways in which it has improved productivity or efficiency,
Right.
and recognize the employees who have embraced it.
Okay.
Make them the role models for others.
It's about creating a culture of continuous learning and adaptation.
Yeah,
Because in today's world, technology is constantly evolving and we need to be able to evolve with it.
absolutely. Now, I want to touch on something we mentioned earlier.
Right.
The idea that these change management frameworks can apply to personal transitions as well.
Mm.
Think about those major life changes like graduating from college, starting a new job, getting married, having a baby, or even moving to a new city. Those are all transitions that can trigger those same emotional stages we've been talking about.
It's true. I remember when I moved to a new city for the first time, I was excited about the opportunity, but I also felt a lot of anxiety and uncertainty.
Yeah.
I had to leave my friends and my familiar routines behind and figure out how to build a new life in a new place.
Right.
And I definitely went through those stages of denial, anger bargaining, and eventually acceptance.
It's a universal experience, and I think what's so valuable about these frameworks is that they give us a language to talk about those experiences and a roadmap for navigating them.
Yeah.
They help us understand that it's okay to feel those difficult emotions and that there's a process we can go through to move towards acceptance and even excitement about the change.
It's like having a guidebook for those uncharted territories of life.
Uh-huh.
It can make the journey a lot less daunting.
Exactly. And it reminds us that change is a constant.
Mhm.
Whether it's happening at work, at home, or in the world around us, we're always being asked to adapt and adjust.
Yeah.
And having a framework like Kubler-Ross or Bridges can help us to understand those transitions, to manage our emotions, and to ultimately emerge from the change stronger and more resilient.
It's like building a muscle.
Yeah.
The more we practice navigating change, the better we become at it,
Right.
and the less scary it becomes.
I love that analogy because it's true.
Mhm.
Change is inevitable, but how we respond to it is up to us.
Right.
And having the right tools and mindset can make all the difference.
So we've talked about how to manage change, how to navigate those emotional transitions.
But what if we could go beyond just managing change?
Okay, I'm intrigued. What if we could actually leverage it?
Exactly. Change can be disruptive, but it can also be an incredible catalyst for growth, innovation, and even transformation.
It's like that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah,
When things are shaken up, that's often when the most creative solutions emerge.
that's right. So how can you, as a leader, or even just as an individual navigating change in your own life, use these frameworks not just to survive change, but to actually thrive in it?
That's the million-dollar question. How can we turn change from a threat into an opportunity?
Well, think about the Kubler-Ross change curve. If you can anticipate those emotional responses, you can proactively address concerns before they even become major issues. You can create a communication strategy that acknowledges those feelings and guides people through them in a healthy way.
And what about the Bridges transition model? How can we use that to leverage change?
The Bridges model is all about creating a supportive environment for transition. If you can help people navigate those endings, that neutral zone and those new beginnings in a way that feels safe and empowering, they'll be much more likely to embrace the change and to contribute their best ideas and energy.
So it's about shifting our mindset from seeing change as something to be feared to seeing it as an opportunity for growth and innovation.
Exactly. And it's about having the tools and the strategies to make the most of that opportunity. Because when we embrace change, we unlock our potential for creativity, resilience, and adaptability.
And that's what allows us to thrive, not just in spite of change, but because of it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So there you have it, a deep dive into the emotional side of transitions, exploring the Kubler-Ross change curve and the Bridges transition model. We hope this is giving you some valuable insights into how to lead with empathy, how to navigate change effectively, and maybe even how to leverage it to create something truly remarkable.
And remember, change is a journey, not a destination. There'll be bumps along the way, but with the right mindset and the right support, we can all emerge from those transitions stronger and more resilient than ever before. And as always, we would love for you to continue this conversation with us. Head over to our social media channels and let's keep diving deep.